Hello and welcome back to AIBC Summit YouTube channel. We're here to bring you news on all things blockchain and emerging tech. Now, since the founding of Binance in 2017, it's been all steams ahead. So Josh Goodbody, Director of European and Latin American Growth at Binance, is joining me now to talk branching into new markets and the future of finance. So Josh, great to talk to you today.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's great to talk to you and great to catch up. And I think there's a lot to discuss because Binance has had a very busy few months. And I want to jump in because one of the main headline news that we saw in the recent months was the launch of Binance UK. So congratulations on that. And I want to ask, what was the main driver for the launch of Binance UK? Was it the presence of clear regulation or more of a case of the UK having a really high potential of community growth?
Yeah, great question. I mean, Binance UK it's been in the works for a long, long time for us. We historically as a company haven't really been that involved in the UK market, but we have seen, as everyone has, this emerging kind of industry of cryptocurrency and blockchain companies, fintechs, being built in London. So for us, it really made sense as a company to be present there and to be building in London. So one of the key areas that made it easier for us to go ahead and actually build in London was, as you referenced, clear regulatory frameworks. We know exactly what we are doing, where it falls into certain regulatory perimeters, and that gives us the certainty to be able to invest and actually build. So when you're a cryptocurrency company that's offering, for example, exchanging of crypto assets or fiat to crypto, that falls within a type of activity that the FCA supervises. They don't yet issue licenses for that, but they will in the future. So for us, it was a very, very simple, straightforward process of just really understanding that kind of framework and building and having that certainty and knowing what you can and you can't build, how you should build as well, has really allowed us to kind of build something extremely quickly. And that's primarily because the market is extremely ripe there. We see massive community involvement in all things blockchain, all things kind of emerging technology related. And for us, there is enough of an interest in the UK community for us to justify building locally. So we're super excited to kind of move out of stealth mode into being public about what our plans are. And I think for us, it's really just the beginning of kind of getting our message out there, telling people what we're going to be building, what we're going to be doing. So watch this space. It's going to be exciting 6 months for us, I think.
I think it always is an exciting 6-month or even 3-month time frame for Binance. I caught up with CZ at Blockdown and we had a great Q&A, and even then, I think that's been 3 months. The company has gained progress and progress. If we look at other markets, Josh, what kind of other markets is Binance looking at moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we are always on the move. We're always building. I think that's just the Binance way. I'm sure when you spoke to CZ, he gave you a flavor of some of the things that we've already done and some of the things that we're working on. And in terms of markets, we really see Europe and Latin America as two key focal points for us. And they're very different, of course. In Europe, you've got a much more mature market. You've got a mature financial system. People are much more involved in, for example, investing and trading in traditional assets, equities, bonds, etc. So there's already a certain amount of interest in that community to get involved in crypto assets because they see that as another asset type that they can get involved with. But whereas you look at the Latin American community, there is that segment of people that want to be able to trade and invest in crypto assets because it just represents another asset for their portfolio. But there's also another element that's really important for us, and that is kind of catering for people that maybe don't have necessarily the tools that they need to be able to manage their financial lives. In Latin America, there's massive amounts of, for example, currency issues. Some of the currencies are devaluing. There's inflation in some countries, and crypto assets for them represent not just a nice to have. They actually represent a really important or increasingly important part of their day-to-day lives. So for us, focusing on Europe because it's a real key target market for us, as well as Latin America, because it's the kind of region that really benefits from adopting blockchain technology. is really two key priorities that we have as a company.
And what you've said there, you've really identified a very interesting point, that there is two different requirements and use cases. And in Latin America, there is the investment portfolio and diversifying and looking into crypto side, as you mentioned. And then you've said the freedom element as well, the fact that maybe their alternative and their government enforced bank cryptocurrencies haven't actually been enforced. I'd like to ask your opinion on DeFi functions as well moving forward, because that's definitely been a buzzword that the digital asset community have been looking at, especially in 2020. And I think in areas like Latin America, that is somewhere where people are really taking notice of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen in Latin America a combination of structural problems that they've had for a long, long time in certain countries, as well as the stresses and strains that are put on local economies because of the COVID crisis. And because of that, we're seeing governments kind of run out of tools in their tool shed to use to combat these kind of economic headwinds. And because of that, we're increasingly seeing people looking at crypto assets as an area that can help them preserve their wealth. So, for example, you can put your assets in Bitcoin or a stable coin instead of holding it in a local currency that's devaluing or being subject to inflation. And that's increasingly important for people. So, I think people really need to participate in this kind of educational journey. And for us as a cryptocurrency company, we have to kind of take the lead. We have to be on the front foot in terms of educating people as to the benefits of crypto assets and what it can do for their financial freedom. But I think Latin America is a fantastic case in point of the immediate practical advantages that crypto assets can bring to communities and bring to people's individual local economies. And we're seeing that, for example, Venezuela has really, really suffered from horrible inflation and kind of ongoing devaluation of their currency. And people are using crypto assets in their day-to-day life, buying things at the local market. And that's a great example of people kind of moving away from centralized solutions to more decentralized solutions. And I think when we talk about DeFi, there are different shades on the spectrum of DeFi, right? There's slightly more centralized DeFi, and then there's, proper decentralized finance, which is run on a consensus-based governance model that doesn't have one central actor. That model is very much new territory for everyone. But I think the more existing, I guess, popular shade of the DeFi spectrum is DeFi products being built by companies and then released into the wider ecosystem for people to use. So I think people see the benefits of DeFi, but they don't really know what it means. And that falls on us to educate people and help them understand what they're getting involved in.
And if you look at Binance, which is such a customer-centric operation as well, so the World Bank has recorded that 50% of the LATAM population is unbanked. What kind of important factors then does Binance have to consider when it comes to providing education and information to users and consumers in this region? It is new territory, and it is something where it is almost quite a sensitive topic.
It is. I mean, it's a great point. That figure, 50% of people being unbanked, is mind-boggling, right? That's a really high population. But if you look into that, you would tend to find that a portion of that 50% are using other sources or other kind of services like e-wallets, or they might make remittances via their mobile phones, sending each other funds via text message, for example. So that there are use cases within that unbanked population that people are using right now to manage their wealth or to move things around, move funds around. So for us as a digital asset company, a cryptocurrency ecosystem, we have to educate. We have to tell people that there is an alternative out there. This is what this alternative is. This is how it works. Because for most people, the first time they start using crypto assets, it's a learning journey. Right? It's brand new to people. They need to understand the fundamentals of it before they can actually use it. And that's on us to start that conversation. So historically, Binance has been really good at educating people via Binance Academy, where we produce blog posts, articles, videos in different languages as well. But we need to be taking that to the people. And we can only do so much through a YouTube channel, right? We have to have local teams, local communities that are sharing that content, that are talking about it. So I think in Latin America, especially, the educational piece is so important, because to give people the comfort that they need to be able to adopt this new technology, we need to give them the kind of tools that they need to understand it. And that's where we come in. So we're all about education. We're all about spreading the word via social media and different kind of innovative mediums as well. But we can do more. We can absolutely do more. And that's one of the reasons why we're building in Latin America, having a local team, connecting with our local community, giving us the ability to really start talking to people on a much more kind of localized way. And that's so important.
And what are you finding when it comes to, in the Latin America region, age demographics and user demographics, for example? Because in Europe it is more traditionally fairly young investors, but people that are already in the investment spaces you've identified. Is it the case in Latin America that it is fairly the younger generation, just because education on Twitter and YouTube is so strong? Or are older audiences also taking an interest as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a pretty phenomenal interest and communication coming from all spectrums of society in Latin America. When we have held meetups, if we can think back pre-COVID, when we've held meetups and stuff, the crowd has been completely diverse in terms of age and experience and their subject matter knowledge of crypto. So at a baseline level, we see everybody kind of getting involved, or at least starting to think about getting involved. In terms of actual adoption and day-to-day use, we are still seeing that the slightly more younger demographics are more active in their day-to-day use of crypto assets. So I don't just mean, for example, buying and holding crypto, I mean using crypto in innovative ways. So for example, if you look at the demographics of people that actually spend their crypto assets using some kind of debit card solution, invariably that's a much younger demographic than others. So it really depends on the kind of product and service that you're offering, because we tend to see more wealth management style investment tools being used by a really broad spectrum of users. But things that are a little bit more niche, like I mentioned, crypto compatible debit cards, you tend to see a slightly younger demographic using them. But I think that's going to change over time. When these more niche offerings become a little bit more mainstream, we'll start to see, I think, them being used across broader segments of the population.
And certain regions as well, because you've mentioned that people using phone minutes also as currency is something that you also see in certain countries in Africa.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting, because that's almost a form of payment that older generations are typically more used to. So the adoption and onboarding process might be a little bit easier in certain regions where there is a higher percentage of those that are unbanked. So you joined Binance now in this year, 2020, in January, that's correct?
Yep.
So I just want to ask as a final question, because it has been a very surprising year for everyone, a challenging year as well, and a complete paradigm shift for a lot of people. How has Binance recorded user inflows during the recent months? Have there been any internal surprises that you found when it comes to the past few months from a trading perspective?
Yeah, I think at a very high level, we have been, as a company, we're quite lucky. We've been unaffected because we're quite decentralized. We're a remote company by nature. So we've kind of been able to continue building and building and building. And we thought we're probably the exception to the norm, being able to continue life unencumbered, unimpacted during this strange COVID period that we're in. And we thought that would have an impact on our user base and on our trading flows potentially. But funnily enough, we've seen the opposite. So since January, when I joined, obviously when the COVID problems were kind of progressing and different countries were locking down progressively, we actually saw month on month record volumes. We saw month on month increases in terms of active users joining our website, kind of getting up and running, doing their first trade. That hasn't changed at all. And in fact, especially around the period of time when the Bitcoin halving was taking place, we'd never seen the levels of interest that we'd seen since, maybe mid 2017. It was pretty fascinating. It was a really, really busy period of time for us. And net inflows of clients was up, volume was up, obviously volatility was up because people were trading and getting involved. So for us, actually, it's been a really busy period of time. And I think people have found a little bit of time in their lockdown to start thinking about their personal finances, to start thinking about other options that they have on the table, including crypto assets. So I hope that's not too kind of too high level for you, but overall, it's been really positive in terms of what we've seen during this period of time.
And do you think people have more time now to self-educate? So people being at home in front of their laptop actually gives them some more time to look into this new alternative that is quite hard for a lot of people to fathom initially.
It is. It's a learning process for everybody. I remember when I went down the rabbit hole 3.5 years ago, really trying to get involved in crypto assets, trying to work in the industry as well. Even for me as a financial markets lawyer, originally, that's what I was. It was difficult. It was learning all the buzzwords, proof of work, proof of stake. The hell does that mean if you've never been in this world? So there's a learning curve. And I do think that people being on lockdown at home, not commuting every single day, 2 hours each way, they have a little bit more time on their hands to look into new things. And some people might spend that browsing the internet. Others might spend it reading articles and blog posts on what Bitcoin is, how it works, what the Bitcoin halving was, etc. So the halving was a bit of a catalyst, I think, for some people because it was in mainstream media, it was on the news, it was in papers. So that kind of piqued a lot of people's interest. But I think people are spending a bit of time investigating, and they're going, what is all the buzz around this? We've got to understand what this means for me. So we're seeing that happening, yeah.
Very exciting time. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining me on the line. It was really great to catch up, get some of your insights and talk to you as well. And we really look forward to seeing you as a speaker for our upcoming conference as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to joining you in Malta.
Fantastic, thank you. That's all for myself and Josh. We'd love to hear how you found this interview, so share your thoughts in the comments below.